With the recent release of Disney's Little Mermaid, which I went to see at a Silverbird Cinema here in Lagos, I remember thinking while seated with the rest of the audience who were very lively and audibly reactive at several scenes during the movie, how different their response might be if it were the often depicted half woman, half fish Orisha Yemoja or Orisha Oshun the story was centered on, rather than the neutralized Disney character called Ariel from the underwater kingdom of Atlantis. Growing up Christian, I'd heard sermons and attended enough church services to know that all water spirits, principalities, and powers were evil and to be bound and cast through prayer and fasting. Yet here I was with popcorn, drinks, and small chops in hand, surrounded by most likely Christian couples, parents, children, or lone audience members, laughing out loud to Ariel's quirky dialogue with a talking crab. I've seen the movie twice now. It's inspired me to dig deeper into the origins of the storyline, and I've been very informed with my findings. Disney's Ariel was based on Hans Christian Andersen's 1837 fairy tale, The Little Mermaid, published in his third collection of fairy tales for children. The Little Mermaid was completely Andersen's creation, though influenced by Friedrich de la Motte Fouqué's 1811 novella Undine. This tale of the Little Mermaid established Andersen's international reputation. I managed to find a PDF version of Undine online just to take a glance through and inspect how much of an inspiration it was on the subsequent Hans Christian Andersen tale. And the more I read through it, the more familiar the story felt to me, and I couldn't help but see similarities between Friedrich de la Motte Fouqué's story to Isao Takahata's recent Studio Ghibli release, The Tale of Princess Kaguya, which was inspired by a late 9th or early 10th century Japanese tale titled The Bamboo Cutter and the Moonchild. Takahata expertly expands on this tale while staying true to the original plot. Furthermore, I was able to recognize clear patterns to popular Irish mythologies as well as practices within African and specifically Yoruba spirituality, all of which I will be presenting in this video. The term Undine was first coined by alchemist and physician Paracelsus, I hope I'm saying that right, in his 1566, a book on nymphs, sylphs, pygmies, salamanders, and on the other spirits. It derives from the Latin word unda, meaning wave. Paracelsus believed that each of the four classical elements, earth, water, air, and fire, are inhabited by different spirits that share our world. He categorized undines as elemental beings associated with water. Later writers developed Undine into a water nymph, and it has gone on to inspire several adaptations within European art and literature. What undines are said to lack compared to humans is a soul. Marriage to a human shortens their lives on earth but earns them an immortal human soul. Speaking of its adaptations, some notable similarities between the personas of Disney's Ariel and Fouqué's Undine are that they both possess a rebellious personality. They are both daughters of great rulers, and they both fall in love with an earthly man, Ariel to a prince and Undine to a knight. In Fouqué's novella, an old humble couple who live in a remote island finally conceive and are blessed with a child of their own, only to lose her at the age of 2 in a tragic drowning accident. The story goes that the child was playing beside a lake with her mother one afternoon, becomes captured and amused by something she sees in the lake. Straining to get a better look, she falls in without a trace. In the midst of mourning, that same evening, a blonde-haired little girl of about their own lost daughter's age walks into their cottage dressed richly and in fine garments with little to no explanation of her past or origin, and the couple adopt her as their own. Throughout the text, she constantly mystifies and that sometimes even frightens those around her due to either the strange powers she exhibits, her insight into the world and other people, or her puzzling utterances. At her wedding ceremony attended only by the old couple, the knight and the priest, Undine succumbs into a delirious episode in which she says, and I'm going to try not to butcher this, "Meseemeth that there is something strange and difficult to understand about the soul. It hath a beauty of its own, hath it not? and yet to me it appeareth full of dread and awe. I ask thee, Sir Priest, might we not all of us be in better case if we never shared so beautiful and so perilous a gift? Once again, Undine was silent, as though waiting for some reply. All those in the cottage had started from their seats at her strange words, and had stepped back from her with something akin to horror in their eyes. The story portrays Undine as an initially mischievous and boisterous young maiden. She later becomes enamored with a traveling knight on a quest who has to take shelter at their family's humble abode. The two end up falling in love, helped by circumstances created through the powers of her underwater family, specifically her uncle Kuleborn, a shape-shifting water spirit who often takes the form of a white bearded man, pulling strings which propel Undine towards her later revealed earthly goal. Even the knight's discovery of the cottage and entrapment on the island due to a flood is hinted as a result of their interferences, as well as the priest who later blesses their marriage after washing up on their shore following a storm which capsized his boat at sea. Undine exposes her earthly goal to the knight after their wedding ceremony when she says, "We should live far more happily than other human beings, for human beings we call ourselves, being similar in face and stature. Were it not for one evil that is peculiar to us, we and our like in the other elements vanish into dust and pass away, body and spirit, so that not a vestige of us remains behind. But when ye human beings awake hereafter to a purer life, we abide with the sand and the sparks of fire, the wind and the waves. For we have no souls. The element in which we live animates us. It even obeys us while we live, but it scatters us to dust when we die. And we are merry, having naught to grieve us, merry as are the nightingales and little goldfishes and other pretty children of nature. Natheless, all beings aspire to be higher than they are. And so my father, who is a mighty water prince in the Mediterranean Sea, was fain that his only daughter should become possessed of a soul, even though she must needs in that case endure the sufferings of those similarly endowed, being such as we can only gain a soul by a union of deepest love with one of thy race." The story portrays Undine's personality changing upon her marriage and gaining a soul from callous with a rebellious damn the consequences and do what thou wilt nature to meek and self-sacrificing and submissive. Interestingly, as this will become important later on, she almost doesn't recognize and even becomes fearful of other water spirits, rejecting them when they try to visit or try to communicate with her following her transformation upon gaining a soul, first when she is visited by her uncle Kuleborn. He raised himself up to whisper something in her ear, but she turned away with alarm and cried out, "Nothing more have I to do with thee." "Ho, ho," laughed the stranger. "Hast made so grand a marriage that no longer thou recognizest thy relations? Hast thou forgotten thy uncle Kuleborn, who so faithfully bore thee on his back to this region? Natheless, I beg thee," quoth Undine, "not to appear to me again. I fear thee now. What if my husband were to learn to avoid me when he seeth me in such strange company and with such relations?" "Little niece," said Kuleborn, "forget not that I am here with thee as a guide, else might the malicious goblins of the earth play some stupid pranks with thee. Let me therefore go on quickly at thy side. The old priest had better memory of me than thou hast, for he told me I seemed familiar to him, and that perchance I was with him in the boat out of which he fell into the water. In sooth was I, for I was the waterspout that threw him out of it and washed him safely ashore for thy bridals." Thereupon said Undine to Kuleborn, "Lo, there I see the end of the forest. No need have we of thy help, and 'tis only thou who scarest us. I beg thee therefore, in all love and goodwill, vanish and leave us in peace." But Kuleborn was angered thereat. His face grew hideous, and right fiercely did he gnash his teeth at Undine, who screamed aloud and called on her husband for help. Humans are disloyal, emotions are fleeting, and later on in the story, her beloved knight's love for her starts to fade due to conflicts caused by their differences, him being human, her being something more or other than human. He also breaks his promise to stay faithful, developing an interest towards another character revealed to be the true daughter of the old couple, thought to have drowned in the lake but had instead been left in the care of another family. Although stricken with heartbreak, Undine willingly accepts her lover's mistreatments, accepting this period of life's bitterness as she had previously enjoyed former sweetness, as simply the highs and lows of existing as a soul being. Undine only begs her husband never to speak angrily to her while they are near water, or her relatives will take her away. He agrees, but at the climax of their conflict and Undine's grief, the knight raises his voice to berate her while traveling on a ship at sea. The waves rise and she is immediately snatched away to be returned to her underwater kingdom. Those who have watched Isao Takahata's The Tale of Princess Kaguya might have immediately recognized the similarities between these two stories. I managed to see it a couple years ago and absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. In the version of Takahata's The Tale of Princess Kaguya, an old couple of little means from a small town who, to their dismay, have no children, find a mysterious and magical child, a beautiful glowing little girl at the root of a bamboo stalk. Kaguya, just as Undine, is immediately adopted by this old couple and raised by them, yet she similarly also mystifies those around her with her otherworldly nature. There's a scene in the movie where Kaguya is running through the forest and playing with the other kids from her little village or settlement, while they're all singing the popular nursery rhyme in chorus. Suddenly, Kaguya breaks off from the rest of the group and begins singing along to the tune, but with strange verses in reverence to the moon that the rest of the children have never heard before, which understandably confuses them. Yet, similar to Undine, Kaguya herself does not understand why she knows these lyrics and the other children don't, neither does she have clues to her own origin any further back than the old couple as her parents. Just as Undine is helped by her fellow water spirit beings to achieve her earthly goal, the old bamboo cutter repeatedly finds gifts hidden within the bamboo stalks he chops up, such as gold and fine garments, which end up transforming their lives financially, enabling them the resources to provide a loftier life for Kaguya, so that all her needs are met and she wants for nothing. Although Kaguya's earthly goal is not to earn a soul, neither are romantic love or marriage hurdles she needs to cross. We can gather from the plot of the movie that simply living and getting a taste of the human experience was her reason for choosing a life on Earth. This goal, to an extent, can be compared to possessing or experiencing what it is like to live as a soul being, and its tragedy of impermanence in which its beauty lies. Unlike Undine, whose heartbreak is triggered by the knight, a lover figure who turns harsh and disloyal, Kaguya's heartbreaks are set in motion by her father figure, the bamboo cutter, who becomes blinded by lofty ideals of what he desires her life to be, to the point where her desires and wishes for her own life become secondary or otherwise irrelevant. First, he separates and moves her away from the countryside she loved to play in and explore with her friends, to live in a mansion amongst higher society where she is waited on hand and foot by maids and tutored by a stern handler on how to transform herself from a wild country girl into a restricted yet poised young woman, physically altering her appearance in order to conform to society's expectations for a lady of her stature, all of which Kaguya seems to not care much for. The bamboo cutter pays no attention to this, fanning his ego by propping Kaguya up as a spectacle of his achievements. The climax of their conflict is triggered by the bamboo cutter allowing the emperor into Kaguya's chambers in order to get a glimpse of her famed beauty. Kaguya's spirit cries out when the emperor traps her in an embrace against her will. Also, side note, the emperor's actions are not portrayed to be as detrimental in the original folktale, And Kaguya even returns his affections by the end of the story with a gift. I suspect the original storyteller might not have wanted to offend the emperor of the time and possibly be punished for defamation, but I digress. More reason why I think Isao Takahata's take on the old tale improved and elaborated on it in so many ways, which is rare. Most modern renditions of old tales often cheapen or misunderstand the source material. Anyway, this traumatic incident triggers the countdown to Kaguya's quote-unquote death. On the final day, a cloud descends from the heavens carrying the Moon King and his Moon People subjects in order to take Kaguya back with them to the Moon Kingdom. You'll notice how Kaguya, similarly to Undine, is taken back against her will to her original world, ending her distressing existence on Earth, even though she herself would prefer to live on. In the midst of her weeping foster parents, Kaguya has the cloak of forgetfulness flung over her shoulders to wipe her memory of her earthly existence. There are several mythologies around the world telling stories of otherworldly beings choosing or being forced to live a human existence for a period of time. For example, the mythological Celtic Selkie tales of half-women, half-seal creatures who often have their seal skin stolen away by human men, enamored by their beauty so that they cannot transform back to their seal form and return to sea. They often then marry these men and raise a family with them, only to at some point return to the sea and sometimes taking their children with them, abandoning their former captor. An Irish animation portrays a Selkie in Song of the Sea, directed and co-produced by Tom Moore, and it hits some of these classic plot points. You'll also find a similar template in Odu Osha Ogunda, featuring Orisha Oya of the Yorubas. But instead of a seal, she is portrayed as a buffalo who takes off her buffalo skin and hides it in an anthill before leaving for the marketplace in her human form, only to have her buffalo skin stolen by a hunter enamored by her beauty, who is sometimes depicted as Orisha Ogun or Orisha Oko, trapping her in her human form and persuading her to become one of his wives. Her escape back to the wild after finding her skin hidden away underneath ears of corn and transforming into a buffalo is much deadlier and disastrous. In line with otherworldly beings taking on a human form to live on earth, I cannot possibly ignore the Christian myth published in the Holy Bible, which, much like Undine and Kaguya, depicts Christ as the child of a powerful being who is born into the home of an average and humble earthly family. The change in parental status between these two realms, consistent through each story, is a likely allegory to the grandness of the metaphysical realm, to which the physical world is lesser or restricted in comparison. Like the two former characters, he also mystifies those around him with his great insights, including his superhuman abilities, and manages to have all his needs made available to him and angelic servant beings from heaven helping achieve his earthly goal, all the while also guided and helped by the Holy Spirit, who walks closely with him and comforts him. His death is triggered through betrayal by a close companion, Judas, and even before his spirit is snatched away, he bears no ill will to the world, accepting his fate much like Undine and Kaguya, saying, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." In resurrection, he transforms to his heavenly form, just as Undine transforms back to a spring, and Kaguya to her moonbeam form as she floats away on a cloud. Christ is carried up into heaven in spotless white robes. It's also worthy to note that even before Christ's incarnation into earth, the book of Revelations depicts him choosing his destiny and being shown the path he would have to walk on earth. So just as Undine or Kaguya, there is a life that is portrayed before earth, and there is a conscious choice made for these characters to be born human. Undine, with her father giving her a goal before her journey to earth, and her uncle, whose back she is said to have traveled on to land. Kaguya witnessing the sorrowful song of a fellow moonbeam who had lived for a time on earth and wanting to experience for herself the human existence, which seemed to have inspired in this fellow moonbeam such longing. It seems without a doubt, judging from the similarities explored so far, that this is a thematic storyline from our collective subconscious, regardless of where we exist in the world. And I'm sure there are more stories from other cultures I haven't been able to include. But all of that was not enough to inspire me to make this video until, while ruminating, I realized why the story of Undine seemed so familiar to me and set me on a trail of research. And then I made the connection. Within the Yoruba sect of Nigeria, it is believed that there are two realms. There's Orun, meaning the source, the metaphysical realm, which is not, but can be best compared to the Christian idea of heaven. Then there's Aye, meaning life or world, and this is the world we humans inhabit that can be seen and touched. There's a popular saying amongst the Yorubas that Orun is home and Aye is only a marketplace. Or in other words, heaven is home and earth is only a marketplace. The Yorubas also believe that each person who chooses to come to earth leaves their spirit companion or companions plural behind in Orun, just as a father would leave his family behind for a business trip, or a close friend would choose to go away on holiday for a while, promising to return to them after their earthly lifespan or goals have been accomplished. These Orun or heavenly companions we leave behind are called Egbe Orun. During one's journey down to Aye, one passes through the gates of Orun and travels over the waters of forgetfulness, therefore losing all memory of Orun. Their Egbes or the promises and pacts made with them, much like Undine, not recognizing her fellow water spirit beings after she gains a soul, or Kaguya having no recollection of what was until it's time for her to return home to the moon. Like the scene in Revelations where Christ is shown the life he will live before his descent to earth, or Undine's mission from her father in the underwater world to gain a soul through marriage on earth, or Kaguya witnessing a fellow moon being mourning her previous life on earth, which inspires her to want the human experience for herself. The Yorubas believe that as spirit beings in Orun, we select our destinies and are aware up to the detail of when we will die before we travel out of the gates of Orun, over the waters of forgetfulness, and are born into the world to live out our existence as only a thread in the larger tapestry of life. After we are born into the world, we forget the promises we made with our Egbes in Orun, or the details of the destinies we pre-selected, and wander through life ignorant of who we are. Hence why in Yoruba lands there is a ceremony called Akosejaye or Esentaye, performed for a newborn soon after birth by parents, where counsel is given through divination on what steps to take throughout its life in order for the child to follow its true life path successfully and accomplish its earthly goals. Though in these modern times where so many are followers of Abrahamic faiths such as Christianity and Islam, which possess a strong foothold within society and shun traditionalist beliefs as baseless superstitions, so many often relinquish their foundational practices, including forgetting to appease their Egbes where needed, and therefore incurring all manner of unnecessary delays and hardships in life. Regular appeasements aren't a strict requirement for everyone, except those whose lives their Egbes are more prominent compared to others. These individuals are referred to as Elegbe. The Yorubas believe that when Egbes are neglected, they can turn malevolent and influence a person's life negatively, like Undine's uncle Kuleborn, who became angered following Undine's rejection and ignorance of his identity after gaining a soul. It is not uncommon for clients to become informed through divination that their issues with financial destitution, ill health, relational issues, or nightmarish dreams are as a result of their forgotten Egbes wanting acknowledgement. In cases such as this, it is not uncommon to find individuals at all levels of authority within these alien faiths making secret visitations to temples and shrines, seeking truths and remedies to circumstances their newfound religions cannot comprehend. In Oduifa Ogbeweyin, a man called Fakwohunda in Aye seeks out divination to explain why he was suddenly facing so many calamities in his life. His livestock were dying, his clothes were being eaten by termites, and some of his houses had collapsed. The diviners advised that his struggles were as a result of his broken promises to his other half, Fakwohunda in Orun. Oftentimes when people mysteriously die, especially after crossing a major life goal like a graduation, a wedding or engagement, the birth of a child, a career promotion, it's often put down to their Egbes calling them back home to Orun due to them having accomplished their agreed earthly goal or completed the predestined length of life that was agreed on to be away for. It might seem confusing to the human understanding why anyone would sometimes choose to live a short life, but these decisions are not made in fleshly forms with human sensibilities, but as spirit beings living out many lifespans on earth, gathering experiences. This act of one's Egbes calling them back home to Orun is very reminiscent of Undine being seized back to the underwater kingdom, or the moon people arriving on a cloud to take Kaguya home. But like these characters, we might fall in love or become attached to our earthly family and fight what was already laid out before our earthly incarnation. In situations such as this, if divination is done in time when a person succumbs to a sudden illness or perhaps through dreams or intuition feels death approaching, appeasements can be made in order to bargain for more time and change what can be changed. One particular example of this bargaining is typical in cases of children known as abiku. Abiku meaning born to die. Abiku children are said to make pacts with their Egbes to only come to earth for short periods of time over and over again through the same womb. And so mothers begetting a child who continually dies before they are able to reach adulthood, specifically past the age of 12, would often seek the counsel of traditional herbalists to perform rites in order to bind the spirits of such a child to earth or Aye. Names are often given to these abiku, tempting them to choose life or conveying the emotions of their parents. Names such as Durotimi, meaning stay with me, Malomo, don't leave again, Kosoko, meaning there is no hole left, referring to the tool used in digging graves for the late predecessors, Kashimawo, let's wait and see, Urukoton, all names have been exhausted, Fadaisi or Ogundaisi, Ifa or Ogun, save this one, Durosimi, waits to bury me, Omonije, it's just a child, Kushanu, death had mercy, and many more. These names and practices persist even till today. Despite his Christianization, Amos Tutuola, a fiction writer of Yoruba ancestry, whose works are extensively based on the traditional belief systems he was taught and witnessed as a child, features a character roughly reminiscent of the Abiku concept in My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, known as Burglar Ghost. Also, while researching other cultures here in Nigeria for a similar idea to Egbes, I found a gem of a video by The Medicine Shell on YouTube, who explores this belief from the Igbo perspective, specifically regarding the Yoruba concept of Abikus known as Ogbanjes among the Igbos, another major tribe here in Nigeria. The link will be down in the description below if you'd like to check that out also. Like Undine's uncle manipulating the weather and creating coincidences around her to move her towards her goal, or the bamboo cutter finding riches hidden in bamboo stalks, so Kaguya wants for nothing. The Yorubas believe our Egbes maintain their bonds with us on earth to help us achieve what we came to earth to experience through their guidance, provisions, favor, and much more. They are said to walk closely with us, witnessing our travails on earth. I just thought it was really interesting how many similarities I was able to find from old folk tales from other cultures adapted into animations and fundamental beliefs on how a group of people comprehend life. Let me know your thoughts, if there's anything that stood out to you that I haven't, managed to explore here. I'd also like to know if there's a similar concept to Egbe's in your culture, even if it's been relegated to only mythology. Subscribe and maybe we can make this a series. Thanks so much for watching.